You've reached Monster 911, and I'm Lance Hightower. I've been taking cryptid emergency calls for over 5 years. If you have a cryptid emergency, please call our toll-free number, 866-306-8085. I can help you. What's your emergency?
That's incredible.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, that's we haven't gone back since. I've seen my cousin. That it's my cousin's husband. We just call him my cousin. I've seen a few times since, and we have not spoken of it. It's not even talked about. Even there's been a couple times where we've been away from other family members, and it's just kind of us, and it's not even brought up. It's just not brought up.
My feeling is that now, going back retrospectively, before this hunt even happened, you had been out there hunting many times, like you said, over 100 times in that particular stand, and there was probably other family members or friends or cousins too out there.
Yes, sir.
Had anyone prior to that, can you recall an instance where someone just said something strange or just kind of out of the norm, that you just kind of blew it off, that you thought maybe, they were out there way before that time?
Yes, we used to make fun of my grandmother all the time. Now, so when I say this land has been in my family for years and years, my grandfather used to sharecrop on the property.
Oh, wow.
And at 16 years old, he moved to Nashville and got a job. And then when my dad had just started, he had just left, he was teaching, and he just got out of college, and he was making a little money. He and his older brother went in, and there was an auction of that property that somebody in my grandfather's family had bought it, and they had died, and there was an auction of that property. This was about when I was like maybe 2 years old, 3 years old. Actually younger than that. I might have been like 1. But they bought the property, and there's carvings in beech trees of my great grandfather and there's a lot. And my grandmother is from down in that area as well. She grew up like about 3 hours away from where this particular property is. My grandmother and my grandfather, after the property was bought, they loved going down and just playing cabin. And remember, like I said, it's basically a two-room shack with no running water, no electricity. We've got spring water that comes out of a hillside right behind the house, and it's clean as can be. And we just fill up big old canteens out there, so you got fresh water. But we would go there. It's got a masonry fireplace in there, and we would, go in there and just play camp. And I would go out. I loved it because, what other kid at 5 years old is able to go out? And I was proficient with a .22 rifle at 5 years old. I was shooting everything. So it was fun. Now, my grandmother was telling us a story, and we made fun of her, and my dad made fun of her, and my dad's brother made fun of her for talking about it, but said that there was she called it a catamount, and said it was, and I all assume, and I still assume, that a catamount means a cougar or something like that. I don't know of any cougars that live around this area. There could be, but she said they called it the old catamount, and she said she's heard it outside the cabin making like growls and yells before. And we called the catamount Patty the Panther, and everything was Patty the Panther. Oh, Patty the Panther's going to get you. Patty the Panther's going to get you. Yeah, it basically just kind of poking fun at my grandmother a little bit. And but that's the only weird thing there. I don't know if it's related at all. I have no clue.
Well, you know, another name for Bigfoot in some communities is a catamount.
Really?
Yes, catamount. Catamount, boogers. Down in the further south you go in some regions, a catamount, the communities, the old farmers that would see them would say the boogers or the catamounts are going to get you. You know, where there's catamounts down in those hollers. That's another name that they would use.
Oh, see, it was never explained what a catamount was to me, and my grandmother never explained what a catamount was or what they're. We just all assumed that because it had the word cat in there that it was some type of a panther or a cougar, and that's why we all called it Patty the Panther. And after she died, we would always make jokes about Patty the Panther's going to come and get us, and this, that, and the other, but. That's the only thing. You know, I remember, you know, being a little kid. I used to spend my summers down there. And Lance, I'd go down. It was so fun.
I bet it was.
Both my parents were teachers, and so when I was in grade school during the summertime, we had all summer, and so we would go down. And I'd spend 2-3 weeks down there, and I mean, it was fun. There's a big giant creek that goes through our property. I'm very familiar with the land. I can walk it in my sleep. I mean, been doing it forever, and I loved it. And I remember being as a kid. There's no bathroom in there. You got to go outside and kind of pee off the porch.
Yeah.
At nighttime.
Right.
And I remember always just being a little kid thinking that there's going to be something out there because my grandmother said she heard something out there. But that's it. I don't know if they're connected at all. That's pure speculation.
Sure. Well, there wasn't enough. You didn't. I mean, it was secondhand from a family member, but you didn't experience it or hear it. You know, it was just a relay from your grandmother, so it didn't have an impressionable mark like you seeing that Bigfoot that one morning there. Now, it didn't have a tail that morning that you saw it. No tail was observable, right?
No, there was no tail.
Okay. There was just probably buttocks, and then you had about 3 to 4 inches of hair, like you said, and there was no cone head to it. It was more of a rounded type of head.
More of a rounded head.
Could you talk about the eyebrows? What is it, kind of an overhang, like a protruding eyebrow?
A little bit. They weren't as... If I'm thinking what and I don't have a picture of a gorilla in front of me, they're not as set back like a gorilla, from what I can remember. Seeing what a gorilla looks like. But they are set back more than, let's say this, the area of where your nose goes up, and then you have your eyebrow to the left and you have your eyebrow to the right.
Exactly.
Unless you have a unibrow.
Right.
It goes, kind of goes up. That was like there was a discernible ridge going across.
Okay. And was the skin color a lighter skin color, or was it dark around the face?
It was. So the skin color, I could see some, like, it looked like it was dirty red, I don't know what the, what's the best way to describe it?
Was it blotchy? Did the skin appear blotchy, gray, or
So the skin on not its face, I could see some skin through the hair, and it was more gray, but the skin on its face was more of a brownish. Do you know what that northern Alabama red clay looks like?
Well, we've got some here in Oklahoma. It's that oxide red. I mean, it's red.
It was like think about a dirty brown of that.
Okay.
More of a
interesting.
So it was basically it was not kind of peachy like my skin, and it wasn't it wasn't black like a gorilla, and it wasn't brown like a black guy. It was different. But it was. I wish I could come up and be able to tell you exactly what color and describe it, but it was more of a brownish red.
A lot of people say, well, since you didn't get a picture, it didn't happen. And I'm telling them,
Yes.
I'm saying, look, most of the times, deer hunters, people driving on the highway, fishermen, hikers, people looking for arrow points, they're not carrying a camera on the side of their hip going all the time. And when they see these things, the last thing they're thinking of is, I got to get a picture. What you're trying to do is process in your head, what the hell am I looking at?
Yes.
And the last thing then is reality as they step away and go back into the woods or down the hill or down the creek. Reality is starting to come in like, what would I see? You know, and
Yes,
so,
sir. Yes, sir.
So I tell people, look, you can be an armchair person and say, well, I would have done this, but in reality, look, you wouldn't have. It's too profound
Lance,
and surreal.
Check this out. I mean, think about this, and I've thought about this. I'm in hunting mode with my finger. I don't put it. I never put it in the trigger, but it's on the side of the trigger guard. Looking at this thing, I could have shot it straight in the head with a 30-06. It didn't even cross my mind to do that. I mean, theoretically, I could have.
Sure.
And I didn't even. I mean, I was what you're talking about. The processing. I'm sitting here processing. What in the hell am I looking at?
Exactly.
This is not normal. And then there's no normal frame of reference to be able to compare it to.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's just
I could be a millionaire right now if I shot the thing and presented it to the world. Here it is. It didn't even cross my mind. So I couldn't even think about, and to be honest, I've actually kind of thought about, before all this stuff happened, whether I believed it was real or not. Why don't you pull out your camera and see? I couldn't even imagine someone, if they see it and it scares them like it scared me and kind of whacked around their version of reality like it did me, grabbing a camera and taking a picture is the last thing that's on your mind.
Exactly. But that would be awesome if we could, get a chance to go out there and chat with you guys and what happened in this event, because my gosh, that's a real scary moment, and it kind of adds a lot more credibility, being that the other two not only heard what you were seeing, but they saw another one as you guys were leaving.
Yes.
I mean, holy cow. It makes me wonder now, it basically validates what we say sometimes, is that when you see one, be careful, there may be others. They're not alone. And it's usually you see the males out and about. I mean, not always, but most of the time you see the males, they're the hunters. And they're the ones kind of protecting the clan.
Yes.
Kind of makes me wonder how many others are truly out there, and how long have they been out there, and how many times have they seen you guys and just kind of laid back and laid low?
I've wondered the same thing, and it blew my mind that we saw not just it didn't act like it was trying to. I mean, it didn't act like the one that I saw the first didn't act like it was trying to hide from me at all at this point. I mean, he stood up and looked at me, turned and looked right at me.
It makes me think just also a little bit, and I'm not trying to put thoughts into what it was thinking, because I don't know, and you don't know, and no one else knows. But, putting logic together here, I wonder if, being that it saw you guys numerous times out there, which I'm sure it did, that wasn't the first time.
Yes, sir.
I think it wasn't afraid of you because it knew you were deer hunting and not Bigfoot hunting. And I know that sounds kind of silly to say, but I say that because I was talking to an individual, and where we go deer hunting in southeast Oklahoma, we've had 3 years in a row we've had activity in our camp. Close. I mean, like around the tent. So that's why we tent camp. We want something to happen. And we've had our tarp on our tent lifted up numerous times.
Hold on, time out. You're wanting these things to come close to you?
Well, we want to, because we're trying to get picture and document. So, I mean, I know I don't recommend that for people.
I'll see one with a high-powered telescope or binoculars. I'm seeing it. I don't want to be. I'm curious at the same point in time to go out. I want to be able to see it again and kind of reconcile in my mind.
Sure.
But the start, I'll tell you this. I listened to probably 3 episodes, maybe 4 episodes of your show. I listened to a couple of episodes of a couple other different people, and it didn't. Some of that stuff just didn't sound right. Didn't sound credible. You had one guest that talked about how they were on a boat, and it was his a brother.
Yep, it was a cousin.
And it, thinking that it was some kids that were messing up their fishing.
Yep.
And got out. Okay, and he was describing how fast that thing moved.
Yep.
And that is it. And just to know how fast that thing can move, and I've seen it, and what it did to that deer, how it snapped that deer's neck. I mean, just like that. I mean, you wouldn't even have a fighting chance if it wanted to attack you. You would have 0 chance.
Yeah. I mean, I don't recommend to do what we're doing to people. I mean, we're not any tougher of a guy than anybody else, and we have a healthy dose of respect and a little bit of fear, but our curiosity. We don't go out empty-handed either. Trust me. What I have with me in the tent is a 500 Smith & Wesson with special loads. So I carry the biggest sidearm I can, but I'm very careful not to brandish it. We're very good at firearms and reloading, but we also have a healthy respect and dose of what these things can do. So we're very cautious about not trying to provoke or pick a fight. We know they're curious. So I know when we go down to southeast Oklahoma, we go in remote areas, and we've had 3 years in a row, we've had things happen around camp that's not by any human. We know that. Oh man, what an encounter! That would.
And I love the woods, Lance. I love being in the woods. I was in 2012. I filed for divorce, and my ex-wife would not. She hated it and would not let. I mean, I wouldn't say wouldn't let me go hunting or anything like that, but I got hell for leaving if I ever did. And so as soon as I filed for divorce, the very next weekend, I'm at that 252 acres on there hunting and just plotting around and looking for signs of where the deer are coming. I mean, I just love it. It was like, finally, I can get out here again.
Exactly.
I love it. Brother, I haven't been back camping since.
Man.
I want to. I'm nervous.
Sure.
I want to. I look at shows like this Finding Bigfoot crap out there, and I'm going, they're not going to find me. What are they doing?
Well, and that's just it, man. I mean, when you see that show, it's Hollywood show. The producers are talking to them through the earpiece on what to do, and they have non-disclosure agreements on that show too. Bobo, I was talking to a guy that went down to a pretty big conference down in Texas. He was in, I believe it was Huntsville, Texas. There was a conference just about a month ago, and Bobo was down there, and he comes across as kind of a rocker that's done a few drugs, but he said that he's actually a pretty smart guy, and he said that and a lot of people know that's drama for that show, but they've been around a long time, and I'm sure they made a lot of money. But he said that they actually had return calls back from the woods. They've had tree knocks come back. They've had
Oh, really?
yeah, they've had yells, but they can't put that on the show. The producers won't let them put it on the show. So their non-disclosure is that if they hear anything or get return calls or they see anything, they can't put it in the show because that wouldn't be finding Bigfoot. It'd call found Bigfoot. And so,
Right.
People would freak out. People are mystified, and there's mystique in searching for something and never finding it.
Right.
And,
Right, okay.
And so, but he's actually a pretty smart guy on some of the stuff that they have come across, but they can't air it. So that's why, these shows, we want to show people stuff, but, we don't want to be on, if we ever, of course this is a big if we ever said, hey, we want you guys on television, I'd say no. Because
Yes.
you're under control of someone else.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And so this way we can control the video format. But what we're trying to do is get film and footage close up of these things. And so that's why, they see you going in and talking. They're curious. So that's why we tent camp. And we've got a lot of people in our deer camp. We've got about, a big wall tent. We have about, a couple trailers, and we have about 5 or 6 tents. So that adds some, and you get about a dozen guys around the campfire and talking, and so anything that's been out in the woods, it creates curiosity. We had whistling going on our camp. About 1:30, I was woken up to a whistle, a really loud, just crisp, loud whistle at 1:30 in the morning.
So couldn't have been a bird or anything like that at night.
No. It wasn't a whippoorwill. It wasn't an owl. And in fact, we're sitting around the campfire close to about 11, and my dad, who loved my dad, he taught us a lot about hunting and trapping and tracking, but he there was a whistling going on. He says, I heard that whistle. I said, I've been telling you. He said, well, what is it? And I said, well, I know what it is. The question is, are you going to believe what you heard? I said,
Yes,
you
sir.
name me the bird that whistles like that at 11:30. And he says, I don't know one. I said, well, there you go. But yet, he's still, until you see it. And he says, well, how come I've been hunting, 55 years? I said, Dad, I can't answer that. I wish if I knew the answer, I'd tell you right now, but I don't know. The question is, how do you know it's not seen you several times, or some of them have seen you and you've never known it? I said, he goes, well, do they make tools? I said, I can't answer that. I'm not saying they're ancient man. I'm just saying it's a being we don't understand.
It's a creature out there.
It's a creature out there. Now, do they make tools? I don't know. Do they have rudimentary tools that they use to kill animals or open up trunks? I'm sure they got sticks and rocks, and they don't know how to start a fire, at least I'm aware of, but I've never heard it. But I don't know any more than that, and I can't answer your question, even though it's valid. I said, but all I can say is that we had experiences. You didn't hear it in the trailer because you had the generator going, but when that generator shuts off, those walls of that trailer block a lot of sound. And my dad, it's kind of hard to hear just a little bit. But
I fully understand.
But when you're out in a tent,
mm-hmm.
and we're in a dome tent, so I don't know if you know about dome tents.
I do.
But we have a really nice Cabela's Alaskan Guide tent. It's awesome. But this dome tents, you can hear sound a lot better. It's like a sphere, right? It's a half of a sphere.
Yes,
so the sound picks up incredibly around you. And that's one of the reasons.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So you can go to these science fairs and these places like in these museums and NASA places, and they'll have a sphere, and you can stand on one side and whisper, and the person standing directly across that you can't see can hear your whisper.
Yes, sir.
So
that's crazy.
Yeah, it is. So in this tent, you can hear all kinds of things. You can hear footsteps, which we've heard. We had the tarp lifted up on the outside of the tent. We created a little foyer, and my brother was sleeping in that. And the tarp came right up a couple times, and he said, Lance. He said, the tarp came up, man. I'm going outside to check it out. I said, I'll be right there. So I unzipped and put on my boots. And it was cold that morning. It was about 1:32, and we got out there and just shut the light off and listened. And it's pitch black, of course. You just see the stars in the sky. But, it's just dead silent. Dead silent. And that's another feature, too. Whenever anything happens, there's just dead silence.
You know what? I've tried to. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I tried to. One of the things I like about getting up in that tree stand early in the morning is hearing the woods kind of wake up, hearing all the birds wake up. You can hear the squirrels and chipmunks and everything. I mean, everything just kind of waking up. And I don't remember recalling hearing those noises.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if I don't recall because of what happened, and I just don't recall it, or I didn't hear those noises that morning. But that's one of the reasons why. I mean, there's a lot of times I'll go up there and I would sit in that. It'd be in the middle of summertime or springtime, and I'd go up there and just kind of sit up there and watch for the deer crossing and see what they're doing, and I like listening to the to the day just waking up, the woods waking up.
Uh-huh.
And it's kind of awesome. I just don't recall that happening, and I remember thinking that later on. I've done a little bit of research, and I haven't done a lot, and I want to. I would like to be able to go and kind of do what just to validate what I've seen and reconcile it in my head.
It's kind of what they call, spending time in the woods, just like what you're talking about. Now that you're aware, fully aware that these creatures exist, your mind is more receptive to things that you see and things that you hear. Whereas some people that either don't want to believe or they don't even know that these things exist, they miss things that they hear and they miss things that they see. You see a breakover. You were talking about these baseball-sized saplings that were in the road, that were broken over and there's no wind. That's a clue. I mean, if you see a fresh break and it's across a road or, say, a quad cycle path, in my mind, that is like a roadblock that a human would put up to say, stay out.
Yes, sir.
So that's, I'm not trying to say that's what it is, but I'm just saying it makes sense to me because that's happened on numerous occasions of people that I've interviewed. They have side-by-side paths or quad cycle paths or motorcycle or even a hiking path, and they'll come and they're like, wait a minute, that wasn't there yesterday. And it won't be a huge sapling, but it'll be somewhere 2 to 3 inches, sometimes 4 inches in diameter, and it'll be a break up around 5-6 feet, maybe 7. But it's
exactly. Exactly.
And the guy will call me. He said, "Hey, Lance, you told me to call you if anything weird." And he goes, "I just come across, my son and I were out here, and it's like a branch broke." And he goes, "But there's nothing else. There's a couple of them right in the way." And I said, "Uh-huh." I said, "To me, that's code for we want you to stay out of here."
And what's crazy is that when we saw that, we did not even think it. We made a mental note of it and we commented on it, but it wasn't a thought in our mind of what that. I mean, you just don't know what could have done it, I guess.
See, that's just it.
But it was not there. Whatever, 7-8 hours ago, it wasn't there.
Exactly. So you just look at that and you scratch your head. You go, "Huh. All right. Well, let's move it out of the way." You just kind of go about your day.
Yep. Yes.
And you don't give it any never mind. You just kind of go about, and that's kind of what happens with most people. They just, until they have an encounter or they see something, then they start going back in their memory going, wait a minute, I wonder if that had any correlation to that, and this, and that sound, and that rock, and this, and, they start going back and putting it all together. They start connecting the dots. That's usually what happens.
Yes, sir. And well, I want to get back out in the woods and kind of I'm a little nervous about nighttime and early mornings, but as of right now, but I want to get out in the woods again and just kind of and see what I see with the different perspective now, and just kind of going around. I mean, I've gotten to the point where my curiosity is I'm over. I want to say I'm pretty much over the initial shock, even though it's been a couple of years. And now I'm into my personality is to really dive in and research and start studying things, or to learn as much as I can about something that I don't know.
Yes.
And so I'm kind of, I don't want to say I'm fully into that mode yet, but I'm starting to get there. Like I said, I've done some research online, and that's kind of part of how I came across your show on I guess it was YouTube. And but yeah, I mean, you're the one that I heard the more credible things in there, at least in my mind. And I remember that one guy's show that was on the boat that attacked his cousin or brother or whatever it was.
Yep.
And I know that exact same thoughts he kept saying, do you believe me? Do you believe me? I remember him saying that, and in my mind, I'm saying, yes, I believe you. It's there. But I know what he's feeling, because the words coming out of your mouth I mean, I can see how crazy it sounds when I say it.
Well, that's
when
just
I verbalize it.
And that's what I told him, and that's what I tell people sometimes in the conversation. It's like we're carrying on conversation like we'd be having a beer or a cup of coffee in a cafe, and it's bizarre to me sometimes that we're having a conversation talking about a creature that most people don't realize exists. You know, it's
that is that big, and it's an apex predator. It's dangerous. I've seen black bears in the woods many, many, many times, especially going to East Tennessee, up in the Appalachians. Seen them. I've come across them in trails. Never thought anything about it. I've come across a mama bear and cubs, and I just slowly backed up, kept facing them, backed up. But I didn't freak out. I didn't have this big moment or anything like. This thing was bigger, faster, and I was instantly scared. I mean, that's the only way that I can put it. And I'm wondering, dadgum, TWRA, the Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency, they've got to know that these things are out there.
Yeah, but let me tell you, buddy, they do. I mean, you can't tell me any natural resource department or wildlife department in any state, probably except the state of Hawaii, but they have known about these things, but they are told you cannot confirm, you cannot talk about this. And here's the way it goes. In my mind, there's two reports. The last department you want to call is the game department, the natural resource department, wildlife department, fish and game. You don't want to call them, because when you call them, they have a direct contact into other agencies that will come on your property and start moving on your property without your knowledge. They don't need your permission. And they will come on your property with helicopters and other things. Now, I know this sounds very surreal and far out there, like, Lance, you've lost it. But I'm telling you the truth. They don't have microchips in these things. They don't know. They know they're all over. But these things have existed for such a long time, and their job, these agents, if you will, or a federal agency, their job is to shut down the activity of these creatures in a particular area, because they don't want them getting too close to humans and having interaction, whether it be one gets shot or one hurts a human, or they just don't want that interaction to occur. So what they try to do is shut the chatter down. They remove these creatures from the area however they deem possible. They will extract them, and they don't need your permission on your property. They just go in. So what I tell people, if you listen to that episode all the way through on 24, I told this gentleman, I said, and he didn't know any better. People don't know any better, because, you've got to have a sense of a little bit or the possibility these things exist before someone will heed a little bit of warning. But he didn't know that these things existed, and he got educated really fast, and he didn't know, so he called the police department, sheriff's department, he called the fish and game department. Well, it wasn't that day, and that island was surrounded by military.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I don't know if you listened further.
I didn't listen all the way through because I usually listen at nighttime.
You listened all the way through,
and I don't really recall hearing that. I take that back. I recall there was something about they went in and they separated him from his brother or cousin or whatever.
Yeah, that was in the hospital.
And were questioning them both.
Yeah, so he went back. Not the cousin that was hurt, but the cousin that I was talking to. He went back to that boat ramp on the mainland where you have to. There was a couple boat ramps, but he went on the backside of the mainland. The boat ramp, it's just kind of a small road, and he goes back there, and it's shut off. There is a Humvee crossways in the road and 2 armed guards.
Jeez.
And he goes, he gets out and he says, what's going on? They said, military training, sir. You'll have to remove yourself, please. And he's like, uh-huh. And so they could hear helicopters going at night, and they were there a couple days, then they're gone. And he asked me, he says, Lance, what do you think's going on? I said, well, if I was a betting man, I bet you they went in there on that island, they extracted that Bigfoot or however many there were, then they had other people come in there and remove all scat, prints, anything that would have anything to do with the presence of these Bigfoot on that island. They removed it, period. And they had helicopters go in there and extract them out. I said, so I tell people, if you see any on your property, if you don't talk about it, and this is another reason why we don't use names and locations, don't talk about it to authorities, because as much as they may be wanting to, of course, they protect us and, our families in the city and crime and things like that. And they do a very thankless job, and I'm thankful for those people. But when it comes to these creatures, they report it to other authorities at a federal level, and they start asking you a bunch of questions and basically telling you to shut your mouth.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I don't want them anywhere near my property.
Yeah, that's why I tell people, by educating yourself a little bit on these shows, and I tell people, listen, just allow 1% of this to absorb in, that there might be the possibility these things exist. And if you'll do that, and you'll listen to a few of these shows, you'll realize there's a pattern. The pattern is, if you tell any authorities, the sheriff or a local police authority, they'll tell the game, and ultimately they have a number. And there's always, with the game department, there's 2 reports. There's the report that you actually tell, and they write it down verbatim what you say. Then there's the report that goes to the public in the paper or whatever is, however they document it. And it says, instead of you seeing a Bigfoot, you saw a bear. If you saw a deer that was killed out on your property and you saw a Bigfoot kill it, then it was mauled by dogs. And I'm telling you, that is a fact. That happens like that a lot. So I tell people, be careful on authorities. And again, no disrespect to them because they work really hard protecting us. But I'm telling you, when it comes to this subject, if it was an animal, it would be reported. But these things aren't animals. They're beings that think. And that's why there's so much secrecy around this whole thing.
From what I've seen of how they move, I don't know if they are aggressive towards people in general, but if they honestly, if they wanted to, they could go and they could get you in the woods and you'd never know it.
And who knows how many times that's happened? We don't, because you're right. You're right. If they wanted to, but here's the thing: we don't have a handle on that, because even, and I'm sure it's happened. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's happened, but who it's happened to, when it happened, we'll never know, because we won't get a straight report.
Gotcha.
See, we're going to get a report. We're going to see that Bob Smith disappeared, and then there's going to be some story after that. It's speculated that Bob has a history of drug abuse and running off, and then if Bob...
Gotcha.
So we'll never get the straight answer, and so that's why the statistics are thrown out the door. We don't know. So I'm not saying that foul play doesn't happen by humans. It does all the time against other humans. But I'm just saying that when it happens by these creatures, we're not going to get a straight answer. So
No.
So it's just...
there's the way that thing, one of the things, the speed at which this thing moved, number one, something that kind of haunts me. But the other thing that haunts me is I am very, very aware of. I've been able to walk through the woods before, and I don't know if you've ever walked and deer hunted at the same time, and then the walking hunt. But I've you know how to walk, you know how to step on rocks or limbs or something like, and not step on twigs that'll snap and dry leaves, and you know where to walk. I've snuck up on deer a few times before, and gotten within 30, 40 yards of them, able to take a shot. So I'm pretty aware of things that are around me in the wood. I can see this thing that is at 500 to 550 pounds is within 60 yards of me, and I have a clear view of where it is, and I still don't see it. I just can't. It doesn't make sense.
No, it's very surreal. It's very surreal when it's happening, and it's very surreal to recall back in memory and even talk about it like we are right now. It's almost like it's a dream. It's the same thing as kind of like my brother Lane. He had one chase their truck. It's very surreal to talk about it, but it happened. It's a fact. And I don't know what to tell people that think these shows are just a bunch of hocus pocus, but I'm telling you that the majority of the people that I interview, they're the real deal. These people are just hardworking people, minding their own business, deer hunting, hiking, fishing, camping, and then something happens that changes their life. And so, back when you got sick coming out of that stand, there's two possibilities I'm thinking of. Number one, you were in shock. You were just trying to process what the hell. Not only did you see it, but you heard it. And you could see it was looking at you, and it vocalized at you.
Yes, sir.
And so it made what you were seeing become extremely real. And then that's one aspect. So your mind goes, there's no words. And so you're
yes, sir.
To go into shock, it's likely. And then the other aspect I'm thinking of, I can't help but think of it, is that if it's yelling, also had a little bit, you'll learn something called infrasound, and it's a sound created by these creatures that we understand. We don't understand all of it, but it has an ability. They can create certain sound waves that can make people sick. It can confuse people. It can confuse their prey in hunting. There's some people that said that they felt warm. They had a sense of they didn't know where they were at. They were in a daze. It's kind of the infrasound, for instance, like some of the Bengal tigers in India. Some of these tigers emit against their prey. It actually has a sound that temporarily paralyzes and can make ill their prey. So
I never knew that.
Mm-hmm. So I wonder if there might have been, if it was directed toward your stand, that yelling, if it was directed right at you, if some of that may have not been some infrasound or some sound waves that had the ability to make you ill, aside from the fact that you may have been in shock. I don't know. I'm speculating here, but it's...
Yeah, I didn't have the full confusion or anything like that, but there was confusion. Not that I didn't know where I was, but but I felt extremely nauseous, and I felt I felt a little disoriented and vertigo, like I was a little dizziness. And I remember thinking that, but I wanted to get out of there, and it wasn't until we got about, a mile or two down the road, once we get out of the woods, that I told him to pull over because I'm throwing up, and I stepped out the passenger, the right rear or the left rear passenger door and threw up. Or
what'll happen is you'll have adrenaline dump, and there's just so much adrenaline dumped into the bloodstream. The adrenal glands, of course, is right on the kidneys, and you'll have such a dump that it's that fight or flight, right? That sympathetic nervous system is in ultra high gear. So as it starts to calm back down a little bit in a mode of safety, that's when you start coming off that high, and then people get sick too. So,
oh man, yeah, it was definitely. It took me a good 24 hours to not feel or to feel better, let's say, not have that sick feeling. So I don't know if that's from whatever that sound thing you were talking about, or if it's just from my nerves and everything. I have no clue, but I just know I can just express what happened to me. And I just remember it was an instantaneous thing, and that's why I vividly recall it. And it was just weird, man. I don't know any other way to explain all this. But these things are, they're real, they're out there, and, it makes me, to be honest, my son is 8 years old now. I'm almost frightened to go and take him out in the woods like I used to, just because I don't know.
Well, that's just it. I would take him to experience the woods for sure. That'd be a shame for him not to experience, what you have. But here's the thing. I would never leave him alone.
No.
And he would be in my eye shot. I don't care if it's broad day.
Yes.
And when you go on trips, have him in front of you, not behind you.
Yes, sir.
Because if you're with a family member, a brother, or someone, and you're hiking and you got the kids with you, put them in between, sandwich them in between. Never let a kid go behind you. There's been a few kids missing that's lagged behind family, and they turn around and they were feet away and they're gone.
Are you kidding me?
No, sir. If you want to educate yourself a little bit, you can get on YouTube and type in David Paulides.
Yes, sir.
Missing persons 411. I'm not a fearmonger type of person. I want people to experience the woods. There's some beautiful country we have here in the United States. David Paulides is a former investigator that used to investigate missing persons, and his interests started migrating over to people missing in wooded areas and national parks and state parks and private lands. And it had a very interesting twist. David Paulides is very good about not coming out and saying people are missing because of a Bigfoot creature. But when you hear these stories, you put two and two together real fast, and it can be none other than a Bigfoot type of creature, another creature. There's been kids following parents in national parks and in state parks where they were 15 feet, 15 yards away. They turn back around and little Johnny's not there. And they can't find him, and they've never found him.
Man, yeah.
And so I'm just saying, have him with you all the time, experiencing what he's going to experience. And then when he gets of a certain age of understanding and not being that he can discern what you're saying, when he gets older into teenage years, you can describe kind of what happened to you. You don't want to do it too young. That might be too much. Too scary.
Too scary. Yes, right.
And that the kids they don't need that in their mind. And,
Lance, I've gone hiking. I go hiking in the Smoky Mountains up until this point with my son all the time, walking around. And that's the first thing that I thought about was, when I'm kind of started contemplating all this stuff, was if they are on my property, and I could show you an aerial view of my property. There's about 1,500 acres of nothing but woods that borders our property behind it that these things could hide out in. But it's, in the grand scheme of things, that's not that big of an area. You look at the area like the Appalachian Mountains, there's got to be a ton of them out there. And we go hiking all the time, and my son's like, hey, he's run up ahead and everything. And it's the only thing, it scares me to death in my mind. I just kind of replay what would I don't know. I've also kind of started doing the replaying of what would I do. I saw it again, and
yeah, that's
what
not
would
a
I
bad
do
scenario.
differently? I've just run up it, but I'm telling you, man, they're scary, dude. They are absolutely scary.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt they are, and there's nothing wrong with playing scenarios in. I mean, that's what military does. That's what law enforcement. What happened. I don't go to a restaurant unless I play a scenario. What would happen if someone comes in and robs the place? So I'm always playing things like that in the woods. If something comes out and we see it, what am I going to do? How am I going to diffuse the situation? Where am I going to go? And so you have to think that way. And with kids, you just kind of educate them. Just say, now we're hiking. I want you to have fun, but I want you to stick next to Dad. Okay? I don't want you to run ahead. I don't want you to go up ahead and hide from me behind a tree. Just, I want you in my eyesight. Okay? And don't get behind me. I want you with me or in front of me. Are we all right? Okay, buddy? All right, let's have a good time here. So,
yes.
But in the back of your mind, you're thinking, they're there. And if you encounter one, you keep them close, and you don't try to pick a fight. You just, I've had people talk to these things like, whoa, buddy, hey, I'm just here hiking. I don't want to bother you, because your tone of voice matters. If you encounter one, you don't want to yell, and you don't want to broadside it, because when you stand and confront someone shoulder to shoulder, that's a confrontational posture.
Yes, sir.
So if you kind of stand at an angle with your hands exposed, saying, hey, buddy, look, I'm just walking here. Just leave me alone. I'll leave you alone. Didn't mean to get in your territory. I just want to be left alone. And you just, you don't want to run, because there's no way you're going to outrun it. But
right.
You just kind of gauge its posture to how because when you stand to the side, that's more of a non-threat kind of position. When you square off at someone, that's kind of like, I'm going to kick the crap out of you, kind of a.
Yes, sir.
So I would just expose hands and use a tonality of just, hey, buddy, I'm just walking here. I'll leave you alone. You leave me alone. I'll let you go. No problem here.
Okay.
And so if you got I would never go into the woods without packing heat.
Yeah, well, I'm going to have to get, my sidearm is a 9mm, and I'm going to have to get something bigger. That's all I know.
Well, I would carry, my personal opinion, I carry a 500 Smith & Wesson, which is a cannon, but I carry it in an Alaska Guide, and I carry it on my chest, and I hide it. It. A 454 Casull is a great, you can get it, that's a little bit better of a carry. You can, that's easily manageable, and you can get it in a semi snub nose, so that's a bad boy there too. And you can carry that no problem. It's not like a hand cannon like I carry. And, so that's something that you can definitely carry, but a 9mm is not going to do much.
No.
And
it'd be like shooting a 22 in an elephant. I'm telling you, it was a lot thicker than a human.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I don't know if a 9mm penetration is going to do the job, and we're talking of some of these at 3 foot thick. So you're not going to do much, and if you don't hit a vital organ, you're just going to piss it off, and now you got a problem.
Yeah.
And if you're backed into a corner, if you feel you're backed into a corner and there's no way out, now sometimes no way out is, sometimes to diffuse a situation is not running, but just standing there, just going, hey, buddy, I'm just minding my business. You just throw your hands up. I'll leave you alone. I just want to be left alone. And, but if you see that something's growling and the teeth are exposed and something's running at you, I'd pull that heat and lay as many rounds as you can to that head.
Yes, sir.
And,
that's the idea.
And then watch your six behind you too,
because it could be coming up from behind. And I'm wondering, and one of the scenarios when I was thinking about, and I'm sorry if I'm taking up too much of your time, was that we know that we saw two, or that I saw two, but there was two that were individually seen in my situation. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if there was one down below that draw that was scaring those deer up to where the one I saw was, and so we ambushed, drove them basically into where that
yeah, it would surprise
Bigfoot
me.
Was.
They know how to use their hunting ability. They have an ability to corral the deer and to use their wits. They have wits. They have intelligence. So that wouldn't surprise me in the least that that's what happened. Not to say that's exactly what happened, but
I mean, it's the only it's a plausible thing or whatever.
And
like I said, I want to get back out in the woods, and I just want to just validate it in my mind that I'm not going crazy, and that and the other thing is too is I've tried to be real, and with you, I've also there's things that I don't like. You don't want your mind to kind of like invent as well when you're thinking, because I guess you're trying to process it and you're trying to do whatever. So I don't want my mind to invent anything either.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think you sound like a very logical guy. I mean, I don't think it will. I think if you just stay attentive and alert, just like, of course, it's hard to with this much knowledge now that you have and the experience, because every little sound you're going to be processing.
Yes, sir.
But I'm going to say that. So you haven't been out there yet. You haven't been back since 2015.
No, and the plan is this summer for me to go back out there, and I'm gonna kind of walk it and just kind of look around and just kind of my father. He know I would never tell my father what happened. Never. Nobody else in my entire family knows.
Oh wow!
I mean, no. I mean, my family, they're all college educated. My was my guy that are. Everybody is college educated, and I would never put myself through what I know what's going to be the next statement out of their mind, out of their mouth.
Yeah,
I just know it, and I'm not going to do it.
Here's the thing that I've learned about education. It's a wonderful thing, but it's also quick to blind someone on knowledge. And I know that's kind of an oxymoronic statement to say.
I know it, yes, because you think you know it all, and you're not able to process new information.
Exactly. Is that our mind is judgmental no matter what.
Yes.
That's just how we decipher information, process information. It becomes bias, and it becomes judgmental in order to process and discern information. Real, not real. Right, not right. Logical, illogical. And so that's just kind of how our education system at a collegiate level is developed. I mean, in high school and grade school and kindergarten and at home with parents and teaching you right from wrong and have manners and all that. But education can be blinding in the sense that it really pushes out the possibility of what if this exists. So the logical mind, using the scientific method, that we all kind of we compare this to that and that to this, and what we know of the known universe and of the known earth and nature and et cetera, et cetera. So it's quick to judge and very blind sometimes on the possibility of these creatures. So I mean, I have been judged many times. Lance, you're out of your mind. You must be a nut being in healthcare. I'd never see you, because you believe in these things. Well, I don't believe in them. I know that they exist. So you're not going to change.
Yes.
You're not going to change my mind. The question
Right.
is, are you going to be open enough to think, or at least recognize the possibility that these things might exist?
Well, and even to yourself, it's like, it's so fantastic and it's so incredible that, I mean, it's one of these things of like, I don't know if I have the words to explain it, and I would sit there and I would try my damnedest to get for you to understand and explain it so you would believe as well. But then we all know those people that I was that person. I was the person that thought if they do exist, and I don't know if they do or not, that they only exist up in Oregon or, you know, Washington or, you know,
The upper Northwest.
Yeah. I mean, and my idea of them is the Harry and the Hendersons type, and it's a joke.
Right. Right.
And that's what it always was for me. If any of my cousins or anybody ever said, my mom, daddy ever said that there was a Bigfoot out there, I would be in that skeptical making. I mean, heck, we did my grandmother.
Well, I was going to say,
about,
your grandmother got ridiculed, talking about a catamount.
Yeah.
And, but the thing of it is, grandmother was telling the truth.
Yeah, and I don't think that I think that she just kind of let it be. I think she just said her piece and then let it be and didn't want to discuss it anymore.
Well, you're now arriving at why a lot of people, this is so difficult to talk about, because people are like, there's therapists out there that helps people with, stress at work and relationships and coming back from the military and all sorts of things. And I'm glad they're out there, and I'm glad they help a lot of people. But my personal feeling is that unless you've had an encounter that scared you, unless you really understand and recognize these creatures truly exist, you really can't help to the full capacity, in my mind, that you can help. And so that's why these shows are popular, because we started the show as therapy for things that we have heard and things we have seen that I know is not a human. And so you can relate really well with those people that's had it. And people just, one of the first things of getting better, or kind of, it's a day-by-day process. It's a matter of coping and not forgetting. I can tell you that right now. You won't forget it, but you'll be able to cope with it a little bit better every year. And because you'll be more knowledgeable. You go through fear and fright to inquisitive and understanding and in investigating. And so these shows are an outlet for people to say, I know I'm not crazy. I don't want to be judged. I don't want to tell my family. I can't tell them because of our family's reputation or because of the position I hold. Yep. And I can't tell them because they'll think I'm off my nut or I've been smoking crack. So I want to talk to someone that's not going to judge me, that understands, and I just got to get this off my chest. Plus, I have a couple questions. And that's where most people come from. But like we always say, for every person that comes forward and it has the courage enough to call, there'll be dozens of other people that will never call. They'll just take it to their grave.
My brother and my cousin, they will. I guarantee you, nobody. I guarantee my cousin's wife knows nothing about it, and I'm 100% positive that my brother's never said a thing to his wife.
Yeah,
I'm 100% positive. I mean, it's not talked about, but it's just if you're going to talk about it, you would talk about it with the person that was there with you, and we just don't talk about it. And I think that's probably one of the main reasons why I actually called you is you told that guy, I believe you, and I think I just wanted somebody just to validate what I saw and not ridicule me either, but also kind of maybe help, because I don't know, and and I would like as much, if there's anything you can tell me to go look at or research or whatever, because I'm in that kind of mode a little bit, but I want to learn more about it or whatever. I'm very interested and curious. It's just I let's just say this. It wasn't eased into it where I saw some creature behind a tree and then he backed away and I didn't see him again. It was a full-on 0 to 10. There it is. I mean, it was a very dramatic and traumatic experience. That it wasn't, kind of putting your feet in the water and testing how warm or cold the water is. It was jumping all the way in.
There was not enough time to process. You went from 0 to 100 in about 10 seconds.
Yes, sir.
And
yes, sir.
Not only did you find out it exists, but you saw it hunt. You saw the characteristics of its speed. You saw how large it was. You saw that it knew you were there, which is a terrifying thing.
That was terrifying.
And then it yelled at you, so you received a vocalization back. And that vocalization, if there was any meaning behind it, if I was to just guess, and that's what all I'm doing right now is guesstimating, putting things together, it basically yelled at you like, this is my hunting ground. You almost screwed it up. You just need to get the hell out.
That's my... It didn't look like he was aggressive toward me. He looked annoyed, almost like it was annoyed, and I don't know how to say annoyed because it's a creature, and I don't know what his mindset is, but he yelled at me like I would yell at somebody I'm pissed at.
Yeah, just
and
if
so
you're
he yelled at me, but he wanted me to know that he knew I was there. And when he looked at me, that was like piercing right through me. I mean, whatever. He looked right at, I'm seeing his pupils because I'm in the scope at this point. I'm seeing his and then he walks off, and his walk was fast, but he wasn't running like he was before. And he had his deer underneath his arm, and he was gone in the woods.
Part of me, I agree. I think part of me, going back and now just processing what happened, part of me wants to say, he knew you were in that stand when he was in that grass, and how come he still pursued that deer? I think that he wanted to prove to you, look, I can catch this deer. This is my food. We live in this area. And you're not going to do anything about stopping us getting food here, so get the hell out. You almost screwed this up for me. I just want you to leave. And so it'd be like a yell of warning.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And they have to know they're intelligent. They have to know that they probably don't know the mechanics of guns, but if any of them have been shot or seen a deer beach, they have to know that humans walking around with these long, fire sticks have got to be these things have got to be dangerous, but it was not scared of me whatsoever.
Oh, they know what they are. Trust me. They know what guns are, whether it's a pistol or a rifle, and they know what a bow and arrow is too, and they know what a knife is. So
okay. So that's why you don't ever brandish one.
That's why you don't want to brandish one, and if you're up close, if you have an unfortunate, very close encounter where you're on the ground and it's in front of you within yards or feet, you don't want to try to pull your firearm right there. That's a little late. That's why I say you want to have your hands free at that moment and just show them and say, hey, buddy, look, I'm just wanting to get out of here. I'm just trying to mind my own business. You go about your way. I'll go about my way. And then you could just back out slowly and just kind of get kind of a feeling of what it wants to do. If it growls at you, just say, hey, bud, I'm leaving. And you could, you could just turn your back and start walking slowly, but part of me wants to say, keep your face turned toward it and show your hands and back out. But I would just say, you don't want to pull it.
You don't want to be a threat, but you also don't want to look like prey.
Yeah, they know what they are for a fact. I can tell you that right now. They know. I had a guy in a semi-truck that was inside the cab, and this one was staring at him through the passenger side window, shaking his semi-truck. And he pulled a gun that was in the console, and it looked down and saw that gun, and it got pissed. It knew what it was. And the guy got mad. and he blew his horn, his big semi-truck horn at it, and it took it off guard. And he did it again, and it threw it back a little bit further because it was in shock. That horn's so loud.
Yes, sir.
But they know what they are for a fact.
Now, I've never thought of this before, but Lance, I have that glass, that sliding window, and it was open, and I have the barrel of the gun sticking out of the window with the, kind of where my hand is holding it and steadying it. It's on, we got some little sandbags right there, some little small sandbags to keep everything steady so you can kind of balance it and get a good, so he had to have seen my gun too.
Yeah, somehow it must have known that you go there, and if you've killed deer before in that area, it knows you're not Bigfoot hunting. It knows that you're deer hunting. Now that's an important feature.
I killed a big buck, and I'll send you a picture of it that my son and I killed the weekend before out of that exact same spot.
Well, I bet you it saw you guys, and it saw that you were deer hunting, and that's kind of an important feature. One guy told me, he says, when you deer hunt, Lance, where you go and you've had these encounters in southeast Oklahoma, go ahead and when you get a deer, take a picture of it with your brothers and laminate it and put it on, put some stack of rocks and put that laminated picture and stack it in that rocks, and that way they can grab that picture and they see you're there just to deer hunt. You're not there to Bigfoot hunt. And that really was a logical, that made sense. So
it does. It sounds fantastic, but it makes sense.
Yeah, it's like we're here to deer hunt. We're not here to Bigfoot hunt. And so it's more likely to be, and I hate to use this word because they're still very unpredictable in my mind, but it's going to let its guard down a little bit more and possibly not be so aggressive on, it's kind of like, okay, these guys are here to hunt deer and they are going to leave us alone, so we're just going to...
We're going to leave them alone.
We'll leave them alone. It's kind of
whatever it is.
Yeah, a mutual thing. So it made sense to me. And so we're going to do that when we go back.